Welcome back into Foolish Club Media. I am Steven Serda, joined as always by my guy, Rocky Magaña. Rocky, it's a Monday night football overtime win for the Kansas City Chiefs. They take down the Bucs with a walk-off Kareem Hunt touchdown to improve to 8-0 on the season. Still the last remaining undefeated team in the NFL. And this was, I think, the best game of the season for the Chiefs, at least the most interesting, Rocky. It's still, loaded with mistakes, but the highs were very high. The lows were very frustrating. The concerns are still there, but they're still undefeated. They still get it done. They still walk away with another victory, and they're 8-0 on the year, and that's all that matters.
I mean, it had the highs and lows of a Greek tragedy. And it's Steven Serda. When I saw Mahomes laying there on the ground, clutching his ankle, I was getting ready to get a hacksaw off and whop off my own foot and FedEx it down to Arrowhead for Patrick Mahomes. So here in Florida, question 3 is on the ballot tomorrow to legalize marijuana statewide for Florida. And I got to think, after the heartbreak and pain that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans are feeling after this game, that initiative may have just gotten a boon for people voting yes to ease the pain of losing in overtime like this and not going for 2. It was a great game to watch. Definitely not a perfect game. Couple of drops there at the end of the fourth quarter essentially gave the Bucs an extra timeout, and then Travis Kelce basically killed any chance at a game-winning field goal by dropping the ball in the rain. I mean,
I nearly thought it was an interception. Thankfully, it hit the ground.
Yeah. It was the kind of game that you would expect to feel like in the playoffs and not necessarily in the middle of the regular season against the 4-4 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are missing Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. I thought that Spagnuolo had a really good game plan for most of the game. And then there were times where he just couldn't help himself, and he blitzed at the wrong moment when he shouldn't have, especially against a guy like Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's quarterback rating is 125 when he's blitzed.
Yeah.
And Spagnuolo just could not help himself in certain moments and blitzed at the wrong time, and Baker made him pay for it. And those selective big plays were really the only reason why Tampa was in this game.
Yeah. There's a lot to get into from tonight, and we'll discuss all of that stuff. But as always, before we get going, I remind you to please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review everything that we're doing here on Foolish Club Media. If you haven't yet, please head over to our YouTube page and join us there. We've got plenty of video content up. We're growing, and we're trucking along with these undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. So please make sure you help support us along the way. But I want to start with everything that you mentioned, Steve Spagnuolo, and I want to talk about the defense because I've got a couple of concerns about the defense moving forward coming out of this contest, specifically in this matchup against the Bucs. And I also want to talk about the kind of dueling nature between Steve Spagnuolo and talented play caller in Tampa Bay and Liam Cohen, who I think is doing some really, really good stuff with this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. But I think where we have to start, Rocky, is we all about had a heart attack, saw the entire 3-peat campaign just totally evaporate before our eyes when Patrick Mahomes flips a touchdown pass to Samaje Perine, but goes down, non-contact injury. And whenever you see those in the NFL, your immediate reaction is, oh, that's a torn ACL or a torn Achilles, and season's over for that player. And for Patrick Mahomes, it's like, well, it's done. The whole run's over now. And that's where you immediately go. But then you watch the replay and it's like, well, the field's wet. It's raining in Kansas City. And it was just an awkward step. So maybe he just retweaked that ankle. That's what it winds up being. Mahomes doesn't miss any time. It looks worse than it is initially because he has to be carried off of the field essentially by traders. And then comes out of the medical tent, jogs around, throws things around, says, I'm good to go, enters the game. And is moving around a little gingerly, a little slowly the rest of the way, but comes back in, leads them on a touchdown drive to take the lead late into the fourth quarter. Unfortunately, the defense can't hold up, so that's why they wind up going to overtime. But Patrick Mahomes, Rocky, in this game, coming out of the gate, looked like the old Patrick Mahomes, was slinging it around the field, was moving the ball at will, just looked like he was totally locked into this one, hitting DeAndre Hopkins for a huge gain. And it was looking easy in the first half. They had to slow things down, and then the Mahomes injury and all of that stuff. But we still got the vintage Patrick Mahomes moments of him, running around on a bum ankle, but making plays when he has to. And I think you could make the case it's the first time we've really felt that kind of Patrick Mahomes this season, the way that this offense has really struggled out of the gate here, even though they remain undefeated, even though we talk about this stuff week after week after week and break down every single game. They get it done when they have to. Their stars step up, and Patrick Mahomes looked as good tonight as he has all year long.
It's crazy what a difference a DeAndre Hopkins makes in an offense. I mean, quite honestly, even when the Chiefs had Tyreek Hill and the Chiefs had Rashee Rice, they didn't have DeAndre Hopkins's, contested catch ability or his concentration or his savviness. I mean, Tyreek Hill was a lot of things, but DeAndre Hopkins is a superior wide receiver to Tyreek Hill as at the point of at the catch point. And on top of that, I think with the injury, the one thing with Patrick Mahomes spraining his ankle that gave me solace and it made me not completely dump a brick in my pants was that the look on his face. If you remember when he hurt his ankle in the playoffs and they were like, go get an x-ray, and he was like, F no, mother F no, I'm not going out, blah 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 blah, F that, I'll do it at halftime, blah blah blah. This one he was just kind of like, okay, help me out the field, I'll go on the 10, I'll get it looked at. It's like yeah, okay, I'm gonna gimp a little bit. There's a little bit of Paul Pierce to it, a little bit, right? And so you can see on the look on his face that it's like, okay, this isn't an Achilles, because he'd be losing his mother effing mind.
Yeah.
If it was an Achilles, he would be trying to put popsicle sticks on his ankle and, Byron Leftwich it back out there on the field to finish the game. And he didn't do that. So that was thank you, Bobby Stroop, Patrick Mahomes' personal trainer since high school, that you turned him into a Gumby man who has very flexible muscles, and everybody thanks you, because the entire three-peat flashed before my eyes and everything went up in smoke in my brain for a split second.
Yeah.
And it was a scary place I never want to go to ever again.
It was very concerning there for a few minutes, but then, even he gets checked out in the tent and I'm sitting there just refreshing Twitter, like looking for any kind of update. What is going on? And then Lisa Salters reports on the broadcast, he's good, was already battling an ankle injury from last week against the Raiders, which we knew about if you're following the practice reports with us here on Foolish Club Media. So that was nothing new. Turns out he's okay, returns to the game. Chiefs win. Season's still alive. Three-peat still alive. We're all good. We can relax now.
And it was like a series of false alarms that progressively got worse throughout the game. Like Mecole Hardman has a really awesome punt return.
Yeah.
And then he hurts his shoulder and like, oh man, that's going to suck if we lose Mecole Hardman, but we can survive. And then it's like, oh, George Karlaftis hurts his hip on a pass. So she's like, oh, we really can't afford to lose George Karlaftis.
Him and Turk go down.
Yeah, him and Turk both down. And you're like, oh man, but then they come back. And then it's like, oh no, not Patrick Mahomes. And then of course he comes back. It's just like, guys, just stop with the false alarms, right? I'm happy you're not injured, but my heart can't handle it. And I'm not a young man, Steven Serda. I'm not a young man.
And like offensively, because it felt like the Chiefs totally shifted in the second half of this game compared to the way they came out of the gate in the first half. And now I think some of that was matchup oriented, Rocky. Like we talked about it this week. This Bucs secondary is not good. They've gotten torched by virtually everyone that they have played. So this is the game where you want to push the ball down the field, you want to try to get a deep shot to Xavier Worthy, take one over the top to Justin Watson, or throw up a jump ball to DeAndre Hopkins. This was the game to do that if you're the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So it felt like in the first half that was the game plan. The problem is the Chiefs can move the ball and they can look really efficient on offense, but then they make mistakes in the red zone, or then they have a bad turnover. Travis Kelce fumbles the football. Xavier Worthy can't get his feet in bounds because he's backpedaling into what he thinks is a touchdown. And It's just the dumb things like that where you're like, man, this passing offense is just so close all the time. It just looks like it is so close to turning the key, and this thing is going to take off like a rocket ship. But then in the second half, they have to settle down. They really lean into Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt finishes the game with over 100 rushing yards. And I'm pretty sure he had 90 of that in the second half because he barely touched the ball in the first half because the Chiefs were trying to throw the football. And I think that's still encouraging for the offense, but it's the same things again. And the offensive line, who I want to talk about them a little bit more in depth. Vita Vea was absolutely destroying them in the first half, single-handedly on his own, was just a one-man wrecking crew. But I do think, Rocky, the biggest difference in this game for the Kansas City Chiefs is DeAndre Hopkins. And DeAndre Hopkins looks absolutely amazing. For a 32-year-old wide receiver, he finishes tonight in a second contest with the Kansas City Chiefs. 8 receptions, 86 yards, 2 touchdowns. And you mentioned it, Rocky. Patrick Mahomes has never had a ball winner. Like never a straight up ball winner like this, like DeAndre Hopkins caliber, where Mahomes doesn't have to throw lasers and doesn't have to, or drop things in a bucket like he did with Marquez Valdez-Scantling the last couple of years. Like DeAndre Hopkins, as long as it's in his vicinity, we've seen him do this for a decade now in the NFL. He will go up and get it, and he does not drop passes. And that's why you get the second touchdown. It's, close quarters in the red zone, and Mahomes just puts it on him. And it's like, is he stronger than the cornerback? Yes, he is, because he's DeAndre Hopkins. And that's why he comes down with that touchdown. Mahomes has legitimately never had a player like this. I understand Hopkins is up there in age, and he's battled some injuries over the last few years. But also, you could make the case that he was just in quarterback hell the last 3 seasons of his career. He was just in situational hell in the NFL. And so maybe there's a lot more to the game left for DeAndre Hopkins than we initially thought, at least this season, at least the rest of the way, while he's trying to help the Chiefs go make history. It's hard not to be really excited about what DeAndre Hopkins did tonight, because he looked like the best wide receiver the Chiefs have had in a while. And this was only his second game in the offense.
I mean, you said last couple. When has DeAndre Hopkins not been in quarterback hell? I mean, what,
Sure.
one good year with Deshaun
He's
Watson
at least been on some
younger?
decent teams, but yeah, he's never really played meaningful football in his entire life.
No, and he's never really had. I mean, sure, maybe you can argue that Deshaun Watson was a superstar quarterback for one season, maybe in his career. He had one really, really good season. But other than that, DeAndre Hopkins has never really had. He's never, like, Mahomes has never had a receiver the quality of DeAndre Hopkins, but DeAndre Hopkins has never had a quarterback the quality of Patrick Mahomes. I mean, any receiver that plays in the NFL, in today's NFL, when they come to the Chiefs, has never had anybody the quality of Patrick Mahomes, because there is nobody who's the quality of Patrick Mahomes. But yeah, I mean, listen, old man strength is real. Like, yeah, sure, he's lost a step. He's not quite, as explosive as he once was. But like the thing about it is when you look at the way he just catches the ball, just when you watch DeAndre Hopkins catch the ball, the thing that stands out is the size and strength of his hands. He plucks, like you hear people say like the receiver plucks the ball out of the air. Like, he plucks the ball out of the air, and when he catches it, it doesn't move in his hands. Like, it is like firmly in his grasp from the moment it touches his gloves. And it's weird to say, but dude's got elite hand strength, and it's a big deal, for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think that the other thing about it, as you talked about a few minutes ago about Kareem Hunt's having his big day, and because Vita Vea was blowing up the offense in the first half. Listen, how do you combat 2 interior pass rushers in Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey that are blowing up your interior on the pass rush? You keep them honest by running it right at their asses, which is what they did with Kareem Hunt in the second half. Like, it's really hard for guys to tee off on the pass rush when you're running directly at them, because why? If they're trying to get upfield, then they're naturally creating running lanes for the running back, right? And so I think that the Chiefs use that to their advantage as well, because they running the ball with Kareem Hunt it called the dogs off a little bit on the interior pass rush when the interior linemen were getting beaten up, which then opened up the short passing game more, because Mahomes was able to step up in the pocket and just kind of pick and choose his spots. And so, But end of the day, I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is one of one in this Chiefs offense. Even if the Chiefs had Rashee Rice right now, which I mean, Rashee Rice was on pace to catch 100 balls this year. I still think DeAndre Hopkins would be the best wide receiver on this team.
Well,
I don't know if DeAndre Hopkins would be on this team if Rashee Rice was still healthy, but if he was, like, I mean, DeAndre Hopkins would still be the best wide receiver on this team.
Yeah, I think I don't disagree with you at all. Like, in terms of just like all around wide receiver game, like, yeah, DeAndre Hopkins is a step above Rashee Rice. Compared to like, and Rice was in play for a truly elite level wide receiver season. And our friend Ron Hughley in the comment section, which I'll remind you guys, if you're in the comments, we'll get to some of those. So shoot us any questions, observations, anything you want us to mention at the end of the post-game show. We'll get to that before we get out of here tonight. But he's asking about Rashee Rice. I think he's talking about like having this like physical wide receiver tackle breaker. Like, I think that there is similarities in the skill set of Rashee Rice and DeAndre Hopkins, but I don't think Mahomes has ever had a ball winner like DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think he's ever had a dude who can just go up and get the football and win those matchups. And that's what's really exciting, because that's just something that Andy Reid typically doesn't go after. Like, it's just not the type of wide receiver that he covets. But when push comes to shove and you're in the middle of trying to make NFL history and you got the injuries piling up, you got to go out there and make the move that's best for the team. And right now that was DeAndre Hopkins. And so incredible performance from him. The Chiefs lose this game easily without DeAndre Hopkins in the lineup, in my opinion, because he was that pivotal for them. And another pivotal guy in the offense is obviously Travis Kelce, who has another monster performance despite a couple of bad miscues. You mentioned it, Rocky. Has a fumble that cost him late in the game, drops the pass, but he finishes the game 14 receptions, 100 yards. And obviously that's not a ton of yardage, not a huge ADOT. Like, he's not piling up the yardage totals anymore. But Travis Kelce is still a very effective member of this offense, and he is still heavily incorporating this because he can still win in the short areas of the field, pick up a little bit of yak after that. At this point in his career, he is essentially just a chain mover, but he's an elite level chain mover. And that's exactly what he did for the Chiefs offense. And that's what we weren't getting from him over the first month of the season. But it's what you need from him on a weekly basis now for this offense to keep moving, because you just need another viable threat. You need another viable pass catcher. So now that defenses are going to have to zone in on DeAndre Hopkins a little bit more, I'm thinking that things are going to open up a little bit more for Travis Kelce if the Chiefs keep running this effectively. Like, the offense is on the rise right now for the Chiefs. So there's reasons to be excited and to feel really optimistic about this unit moving forward, aside from the offensive line, which we will get to. But it was just a really fun night, Rocky. It just feels like we haven't had a fun offensive performance from the Kansas City Chiefs in a while. Like one that, even with the mistakes, when it was working, it was fun again. And it's been a while since it was this much fun, at least for me on the offensive side of the ball.
No, it was fun again. And it was fun to be in a situation. Obviously, I wish the Chiefs would have got the stop and it wouldn't have gone to overtime, or they would have kicked the game winning field goal, yada, yada, yada. But it was fun to see Patrick Mahomes' eyes light up when he found out that the Chiefs were going to get the ball. And you knew in the back of your head the Chiefs were going to get a touchdown. Like, you knew instantly. The moment that they said heads and Baker Mayfield had chose tails, and you saw the look in Patrick Mahomes' eyes, and then you saw Baker Mayfield's like exasperated sigh and look up to the sky like, God, why do you hate me? You knew that Mahomes was going to drive the length of the field and get the touchdown and be methodical about it. With Kelce, you're right. He is just a chain mover at this point in his career, but he's a damn good chain mover. I mean, that's the whole thing. Is that yeah? So maybe they lack a little bit of explosiveness until Xavier Worthy comes around and starts being more productive and reliable. But if they're just going, but listen, Patrick Mahomes is one of the most patient quarterbacks in the NFL. If he has to go 15 plays for 80 yards to score a touchdown, 3-4 times a game, you have faith that he's going to make the right choices that many times in a row and be able to move the ball, especially if they're running the ball as well as they were tonight. Now, there's not a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL, A, whose coaches make them do long drive drills regularly so that they're prepared for a 15-play drive or a 13-play drive, like consistently. But then also who you trust their decision making in the face of blitzes, of rolling out, of scrambling, of when to audible, to be able to put together a drive of that many plays in a row. Now, Baker Mayfield played a really good game tonight, I thought, and he puts together a couple long drives. But on the drives where Baker Mayfield throws an interception in the 3 games leading up to this, he had thrown 7 interceptions. Of those, on those drives where he threw an interception, he averaged 4.6 plays per drive. Why? Because he would get frustrated. He'd make a bad decision. He'd try to force the ball downfield. There's just not a lot of guys who've become as patient as Patrick Mahomes has become. And a lot of that is A, playing with lesser receivers, but also B, just teams playing so much shell coverage against him over the last couple of years. He's had no choice but to become patient. And now that he's continued to improve, continue to get better, he's one of the best in the league at it. And so there really is no weak spot to his game at this point, except for the occasional bad footwork where he doesn't get his feet right and he makes a bad throw.
So I'm really, really kind of in love with this version of the Chiefs right now. Like, I don't know if it's I'm getting older, Rocky. At 35 years old, I've gotten a lot more nostalgic as I've gotten older, and like to think back on things very fondly now, and things move me in different ways. But this Patrick Mahomes led, aging Travis Kelce, aging DeAndre Hopkins, Kareem Hunt coming back for the redemption story as they try to make NFL history and cement themselves as the greatest dynasty in all of NFL history. Like, it's just been really cool. Like, it's been really fun. And God, I hope DeAndre Hopkins stays healthy for this offense, because if this is the kind of DeAndre Hopkins they're going to get, like, it's a total game changer for the Chiefs moving forward on that side of the ball. And I still think, like, I liked what Andy Reid did for the most part tonight. Aside from the sloppiness, it was still far from perfect, but we saw the Chiefs taking chances. And like I mentioned already, I really think the first half that's what we've been working on all week. That was how we wanted to attack them. We wanted to see if we could get a couple of big plays downfield and get the offense moving and just, light things up a little bit. Maybe actually for once get out to an early lead and see if we can create some explosives. And then there's the issues. Xavier Worthy's really got to work on his awareness, because we've seen this happen a couple of times now. Like, he's a young player. He's a flawed player. He's probably never going to be a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL, but he's certainly shown enough promise that he could still get better as a player. He's just got to work on that. And he's got to make the most of his opportunities now, because the reason they go out and make that Hopkins trade is because they know Worthy right now, it has more potential, but he's basically in like a McCole Hardman-esque role where they're like, we don't really trust you because you're not consistent with how you're playing. We can't trust you to run a full route tree. Like, you've just got this kind of gimmicky role on offense right now. And sometimes when it hits, it looks amazing. And when it doesn't hit, it looks flawed and it looks like there's issues with it. So this offense moving forward, though, it is much more exciting. And I was happy that we saw them lean on Kareem Hunt in the second half and come out of the gate and just say, okay, that's it. We're just going to run it down your throats now, because we know we can do that. And we know that our offensive line, for all of the issues that they've had this season, sometimes they've been great. Lots of weeks they've had issues, not just at the tackle position, but along the interior. What they can excel at is run blocking. And what they can excel at is trying to open up holes or getting Trey Smith pulling and out into space, trying to level dudes to make sure that Kareem Hunt has some spots to really try to break off some nice chunk gains. And they did that in the second half. And I think it totally changed the game plan for them. And it totally reshaped the second half, because things were not going in the Chiefs' favor prior to them just being like, all right, screw it, Kareem, we're just going to give you the ball 10 times on this drive because we need to go get in the end zone. And that's absolutely what they did.
Listen, at this stage in his career, Kareem Hunt is great at getting hard yards. Like, that's his specialty at this point. And, Troy Aikman talked about it a little bit on the broadcast. His longest run last year was 16 yards. His longest one this year, I think, was 15 yards tonight. But there's a reason why the Chiefs did most of their running between the tackles and not outside of the tackles. The tackles did not block well today. Even when Kareem Hunt wasn't running the ball, when they tried to jet sweep or an end around or something of that nature, they were going nowhere. When they ran the ball up the middle, Kareem Hunt was able to fight for some yards. He was able to get some lanes, get some space to run because you have that solid interior. But the tackles run blocking was terrible tonight. It wasn't good. And that's also like, and if we're going to sit here and nitpick about this offense, which I don't want to because we're 8-0. And before I say anything, we're living in the good old days right now of Chiefs football. Like when we're sitting with our grandkids on our knees someday talking about the golden age of Chiefs football, we're going to be talking about when the Chiefs went and got a 3-peat, right? So this is the good old days. So I don't want to poo-poo that by any means. But that being said, if you're going to nitpick some of the play calling, it's like, okay, Kareem Hunt runs the ball 10 plays in a row, gets them down to the red zone, gets them down onto the 10-yard line, 1st and goal from like the 9-10-yard line, and you spell him because he's tired, and you immediately try a jet sweep with Mecole Hardman that goes nowhere and kind of just kills momentum on the drive. And you're just like, God, guys, like you can't help but try to get too cute at some points.
Yeah.
And it's like I know Kareem might have been tired, but was he so tired that he couldn't just go another run? Or you can't bring in Carson Steele for a couple of plays to spell him? Like, you got to try to get cute and do an end around to Jawan Taylor's side that's going to go absolutely nowhere on a jet sweep. It's those things where you're still like, come on, man. Like, those are the ones where you're like, I know that you want to not be one-dimensional, you want to not be predictable, but you're predictable in your unpredictability in those moments.
Oh, and early in the game, they have the deep shot to Worthy, but he can't stay in bounds. And then that's followed up by the huge loss to Worthy because Andy was trying to get a little too cute and get Worthy out to the edge and gets totally blown up. And I think, too, with Worthy, I was thinking about this during the game, Rocky, and you can tell me if you've seen the same thing or not. But sometimes it just seems like he doesn't turn on the speed fast enough. Like, he's slow trying to get outside before he really hits the edge and like takes off, because even that loss, I was just like, well, he's fast enough to beat that. Like, he should be fast enough to run around that defender and get to the outside. Maybe he's not going to break a lot of tackles because he's just not very big and he's not very strong. But if he's supposed to have that kind of speed, he should be able to beat a defensive lineman in the backfield, I would think. And I just feel like we've seen that from him a few times now, where it's not that we don't know that he has the speed. He just doesn't turn it on fast enough sometimes. I'm always just like, come on, just kick it into gear and let's go. Like, you set the NFL combine record in 40-yard dash time. Let's see you actually use it.
No, and I definitely know in that big play where they lost all the yardage, you're like, oh, he's definitely going to beat him to the outside. And they're like, oh, wait, he didn't beat him to the outside. And you were sitting there for a second. You're like, he's faster than that. Like, he is faster than that.
Yeah.
Now, is it that he can't change direction at that speed, and so he needs to wait? Is it that he's trying to slow play it and then kick it into another gear to have the defender, underestimate him? Who knows? But whatever he's doing, he needs to learn how to time it a little bit better, or how to get up to speed a little bit quicker, because right now, you're right, there are times where the speed isn't showing like it had previously on tape, or like it should be on tape. And I would say even in like some passing routes, like if he's going deep, it's like there's guys there's guys who are running stride for stride with them, and it's like, wait a minute, if you're supposed to be the fastest guy, why is it that every cornerback in the league can run stride for stride with you on deep patterns? Like, why are you failing to get that separation?
And like Lions wide receiver Jameson Williams, who I know has been suspended the last couple of games, but he's going to come back. But prior to being suspended, like when Jameson Williams gets the ball on an end around, he is just boom. And you can see he is just faster than everybody else on the field. Or when he's running these deep downfield routes, like you could see him just blow past these people. We haven't totally seen that speed translate as often as I would like from Xavier Worthy so far in his NFL career. But developmental player. Kareem Hunt still been fantastic. And we have to talk about the offensive line on a weekly basis now, Rocky. And the tackles are a problem. Now, I don't know exactly what was going on early in the game. Kingsley Suamataia came in for a couple of snaps early, and then it was back to Wanya, and then it was basically Wanya the rest of the way. Still issues with the tackles. Juwan Taylor should have gotten called for a penalty late towards the end of the game, but the refs missed it, thankfully, for Taylor tonight. But Wanya struggled. Another concerning part was the interior was struggling, but I'm going to chalk that up to Vita Vea is a one-of-one player in the NFL, and it's like him and Dexter Lawrence are like the two nose tackles in the NFL right now who could absolutely decimate anyone from the interior. And so I'm willing to chalk it up to it. Vita Vea is just an insane player, but he was giving everybody in the interior of the Chiefs offensive line problems in the first half. And you're right that they showed that up a little bit in the second half just by running the football, because they were like, we just can't, Mahomes just doesn't have enough time. Like, this dude's just absolutely eating us alive. But that's still a concerning thing, because we haven't seen drastic improvement from the tackles. Like, we were hoping that maybe you get this thing worked out along the way. Maybe it is a move back to Kingsley at some point to see if you can just get anything else out of them. But I've also mentioned this in previous weeks, Rocky, like, the interior is supposed to be the part of the offensive line you never have to worry about, and it hasn't always been the case this season. So I'm still a little bit concerned about the offensive line, but at the end of the day, you have to expect they're going to be able to do their job just enough for the Chiefs to still be competent on offense moving forward.
Yeah, I still have PTSD from Vita Vea destroying the Chiefs' interior offensive line in the Super Bowl here in Tampa, when we lost to Brady in the Super Bowl. He's a problem. He's always been a problem. He moves. He's 6'4", 300 and like, I don't know, like he's 6'4", 1,000 pounds. It's like that's what he looks like, and he moves really, really well for his size. And then next to him is Kalijah Kancey, and a lot of people, Vita Vea gets a lot of attention because he's been in the league a while and everybody knows his name. But Kalijah Kancey was the best interior pass rusher in his draft class, and he's a smaller guy. He's small for an interior pass rusher, but coming out of Pittsburgh, his coaches at Pittsburgh were comparing him to Aaron Donald. Now, he's not Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald's stronger than he is and has longer arms than he does, and they're different players. But Kalijah Kancey has a very well developed pass rush technique, and he is a dog on the interior despite being an undersized guy. And so he got a pair of sacks today also. And so I agree with you that that it's concerning that the interior offensive line did not hold up better against really good competition, because what we're waiting for to see is this Chiefs offensive line hold up well against elite competition, whether it's elite edge rusher, whether it's elite interior pass rush like tonight. The Chiefs offensive line at some point in every single game struggles with an elite pass rusher, right? I think maybe they did okay against Nick Bosa, who was coming back from injury, right? I mean, with the 49ers. But even then, it's like every week you're like, man, like they're just getting too much pressure on Patrick Mahomes. And you trust Patrick Mahomes to handle the pressure and all of that. But it's like this offensive line definitely is it's weird to say with all the injuries that the Chiefs have had in the offense this year, to say that the offensive line is the weak link, considering that they're healthy, right? Yeah. But they need a tackle. They need another tackle.
And I'm ready to admit, like, coming into the season, all these lofty expectations for a second round rookie. And I blame some of that on the Chiefs and their coaching staff for the way that they hyped him up coming out of training camp. Because now I feel like we've seen some okay things from Wanya Morris, but we've also seen a lot of really bad things from Wanya Morris. And the Chiefs apparently have no interest in going back to Kingsley. So they've got even less faith in that guy, even though they were talking him up coming out of training camp like he was going to be their next home run draft pick. And the offensive line's a bit of a concern because, yeah, you mentioned it. You're going to go at the Chiefs have the toughest part of their schedule out of the way. They still got a couple of tough matchups down the road with the Buffalo Bills and the Houston Texans, but they're going to have to play the best teams in the NFL in the postseason, and the offensive line is going to have to play better. Now, we've seen this offensive line do that before and step up in the most critical moments of the year. And we know what Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid and everybody dials up during the postseason. So I think at the end of the day, it'll probably be enough. I hope it'll be enough, but it's still a concern for me moving forward because it does not seem like they have an answer at left tackle. It's just hope that they can hold up enough to get something going and don't get Patrick Mahomes killed, because you do not have an answer there that's going to make you feel good about the spot the rest of the way.
It's literally, I was doing dishes in my kitchen yesterday thinking about the Chiefs left tackle problem, and it occurred to me that if Nick Allegretti was still on this football team, he would be the Chiefs starting left tackle right now, without a doubt. And I love Nick Allegretti, Super Bowl hero, put his statue up in front of Arrowhead for all time. But if he's your starting left tackle in the NFL, then you need an upgrade at left tackle. And it would be like, I mean, it would be without a doubt at this point in the season, Nick Allegretti would be the starting left tackle if he was still on the Chiefs. And that tells you absolutely everything you need to know about where we're at with Wanya Morris and Kingsley Suamataia.
And I'm not going to pretend that I paid a lot of attention to Nick Allegretti in Washington this season, but I do know that Washington has one of the best offensive lines of the NFL right now. Through the first 9 weeks of the season, they have played really, really well. So, yeah, I think there's absolutely something to that, and it's something we're gonna have to keep talking about, because week after week, it's becoming an issue, and you're gonna have some of these brutal matchups. And I know the Chiefs already beat the Ravens, and, for a week it was, the Ravens are the best team in the NFL again. They're the best team that we've ever seen. And then they have a bad loss, and then they come back the following week against tough defense in the Broncos and just absolutely decimate the Broncos defense. And it's like, but that's kind of always been the story with the up and down Ravens. What matters the most is who makes the most plays when it matters the most. And the Kansas City Chiefs have done that better than any other team in the NFL. And so, barring injuries, I expect them to continue to be able to do that. Now, what I did not expect in this game, Rocky, was the Chiefs defense to finally let me down. It feels like it's been a year and a half since, game on the line, defense has to go get a stop, and they did not get a stop, Rocky. They let Baker Mayfield march down the field on them with Sterling Shepard and Ryan Miller as his top wide receivers, and they go get a touchdown to tie this thing up and force overtime. And it was the first time in a long time that I felt let down by this Chiefs defense, because we've become so accustomed to them. Just, okay, you need us to do it. Spags, you need us to go shut these guys down. You need us to go get a stop. We're going to go do it. Like, they already had one of the most impressive goal line stands that I've ever seen earlier this season. Like, this defense does it over and over again. And I'm going to chalk this up to, weird night, physical football team. Liam Cohen looks like he's one of the best offensive coordinators in the NFL right now. And I thought at times he was out dueling Spags tonight. Even with inferior offensive talent, because the Bucs have no wide receivers. Hell, Jalen McMillan was supposed to be a guy for them, and Jalen McMillan winds up being out in this game after suffering an injury in practice last week. So, like, I'm not at a point where I'm panicking about the Chiefs defense because of one Monday Night Football matchup against the Bucs in the rain with terrible field conditions. But there's a few things that are a little bit cause for concern, specifically the Chiefs secondary and corners outside of Trent McDuffie, which we knew was going to be a problem. Najee Johnson's not in this game. Joshua Williams gets a lot of playing time. And to their credit, they shut down the Bucs wide receivers for the first 3 quarters of the game. But then in crunch time, game on the line, 2-minute drill, no huddle, hurry up offense, Baker Mayfield's just ripping it down the field. And these guys are getting open and making plays against these Chiefs cornerbacks, which is something that we're not used to seeing, because that secondary has been locked down for a long time.
I mean, this is a couple weeks in a row now where Joshua Williams has had some really, really bad mental errors. That horse collar tackle on that running play, I know he probably thought he was saving a touchdown, and that's why he did it. But he had Brian Cook and Nick Bolton behind him. He gave up 15 yards to save about 5 yards. And so, like, it's those kind of like mental errors that are really hampering him. And he had a really rough fourth quarter in coverage. And this is a couple of weeks now where Josh Williams is a guy who's played a lot of big football games for the Chiefs and played meaningful snaps in the Super Bowl, that in Super Bowls that they've won. But he also has failed to take the next step forward to kind of like show himself to be a starting caliber cornerback in the NFL. And then Chris Roland Wallace, I mean, the guy's an undrafted rookie free agent. Yeah, he got beat by Sterling Shepard. He should be getting beat by Sterling Shepard, though, right? I mean,
Sterling Shepard was a high pedigree player at one point.
Yeah, exactly. And so to say the Chiefs, he's getting beat, yeah, he should be getting beat, because realistic expectations that a lot of Chiefs fans don't have for our secondary, because they've been so solid for so long, is that an undrafted rookie free agent cornerback is going to struggle and take his lumps in the league, right? Most undrafted rookie free agent cornerbacks don't ever see the field, let alone play snaps in the fourth quarter like this. Williams definitely, I feel like, has taken a step back. And he's not playing the same caliber as he once was. He's not mentally in the game like he once was. Now, all that being said, I know this is going to sound stupid, but Baker Mayfield is actually a really bad matchup for Steve Spagnuolo. And that sounds crazy to say, but just because they don't do a lot of screen passes, which they actually adjusted and did in this game to some pretty good success. They don't do a lot of screen passes. They do a lot of stuff off of play action, and he's so good against the blitz. He's not good against drop zone, drop zone, create pressure with only 4 pass rushers. And that's what you saw the Chiefs do in the first half. Is they weren't blitzing. They were rushing with 4 and getting home with 4, and then forcing Baker Mayfield to throw the ball. Baker Mayfield has a lot of weaknesses. One of his only really big strengths is throwing against the blitz.
Yeah.
And you saw that first touchdown pass where Justin Reed guessed wrong on a wheel route there in the flats, and they got beat over the top on blown coverage. But they blitzed on that play, which is why they were short a guy in coverage, right, on that play. And he had to try to guess, and he was caught between the two choices. And so it's like, I love Spagnuolo. He's a Hall of Fame. He might be the greatest defensive coordinator in the history of football, but he's going to do himself. It's one of those things where he's going to play his brand of football and call his game and then make you beat him.
Yeah.
And at selected moments in this game, Baker Mayfield beat him, right? And he made the play in the face of the blitz. And so you would just like to think a little bit, especially with being a little, shorthanded in the secondary, that you're not going to make Joshua Williams and Chris Roland Wallace hold up in man-to-man coverage against a blitz in a crucial situation. You know what I mean? So, I mean, Spags didn't necessarily do him any favors in some moments, but you just really feel like the Chiefs need a cornerback.
Yeah. And just how the Chiefs were scheming things up in their matchup, like the Bucs were scheming things up, those screen passes tonight, the quick things to try to combat the pressure that the Chiefs bring with the blitzes. That was all game plan oriented for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But I do want to mention Andy Reid at the podium after the game did confirm Mecole Hardman dealing with the shoulder injury, Patrick Mahomes an ankle. Though Mahomes says it's not that serious, says he's played with this type of injury before. He's not concerned long-term or anything moving forward. George Karlaftis is dealing with some kind of hip injury, and Turk Wharton's got a knee issue, but Pete Sweeney did add that Andy Reid didn't seem to act like any of them were overly concerning or like they're serious long-term injuries for any of those players. So those are things to keep an eye on. And, the Chiefs, maybe there is another move to make. I know there's a lot of people leaking out there, Marshawn Lattimore, and the Chiefs are supposedly interested in him. Even after the Chiefs move some money around, I just don't know how they're going to go out there and afford Marshawn Lattimore. Though I would certainly be on board for it if they could make it happen. But the cornerback room is slightly concerning because Jalen Watson going down is just such a huge bummer. And I was excited for Joshua Williams because we've seen Joshua Williams look like he can be a playmaker before. But I totally agree with you. It just looks like he's taken a step back this season for whatever reason, and they can't seem to to get the guy that they had last season who looked like he could be a contributing member of this defense on a consistent basis. But I will say an encouraging sign for the defensive line, and, Turk Wharton and George Karlaftis getting a little bit banged up in this one. But man, Rocky, George has been on an absolute tear. George was playing out of his mind tonight. He has been an absolute monster over the last month of the season after having a very slow start to the season. It's on a weekly basis now. George is absolutely lighting up quarterbacks and making plays and just showing that engine that he showed coming out of college that we all loved about him. And then we saw Joshua Uche get in the mix a little bit tonight. He was mostly third down situational pass rusher, but he made an impact and had some good reps. And then we see Chris Jones get home tonight. Turk Wharton again made some plays. Like, the Chiefs defensive line looks very, very encouraging right now, especially when you factor in Charles Omenihu coming back, and Josh Uche is going to keep getting in the mix and getting more involved as we move along here.
Oh, I think without a doubt, and I think just the fact that Josh Uche was on the field at all today, I mean, it shows that the Chiefs like what they see out of him, and they definitely brought him in as a rotational pass rush piece. I think it's going to be a big deal when we get Omenihu back, because Mike Dan is awesome, Josh Uche is awesome, but putting like a legit winner, like guy who's just going to beat the outside man on the other side from George Karlaftis is just going to free him up even more. And we should have seen this coming out of George Karlaftis. I mean, he had double-digit sacks last year, worked with Tamba Hali in the offseason for a second straight year. Even before he started getting his sack numbers this year, he was getting consistent pressures. I mean, the guy has developed into a legitimate pass rusher in the NFL, and a guy that you think 5-6 years down the road is going to be regarded as one of the better pass rushers in the NFL still. Like his build and his pass rush game are designed to hold up over time as well. He's a sturdy, strong player who's smart, gritty, like any of the adjectives you want to use to describe like an old school throwback, defensive end, pass rush defensive end from like the 90s. Like, he's that guy. He's that guy who picks up his work pail, takes it to work each day, doesn't cause problems off the field or in the clubhouse. Is a humble dude, like everything you want like a guy in the trenches on the defense to be. George Karlaftis is that guy, and he definitely benefits from Chris Jones getting double teamed too. But he's also going to benefit from Charles Omenihu coming back, and Charles Omenihu is going to benefit from George Karlaftis and Chris Jones. And it's one of those things where it's like when we have all three of those people on the field at the same time. We saw that last playoffs, last year in the playoffs. We saw that before Omenihu went down, and it was scary because they were harassing opposing quarterbacks like almost every single play. And so it's exciting. It's exciting. The Chiefs in general right now are probably the weakest they're going to be all year. Like this was the best shot that a team had to upset the Chiefs was right now.
And I'm still not on team like they're gonna go undefeated or something like that. Like, I've been down this road too many times with this Chiefs team. There's gonna be a game where they just absolutely do not show up. Like, that is absolutely going to happen. So there's no reason to get your hopes up. Just know that that's going to happen at some point here in the near future.
And you think it's going to be the Browns, don't you? You think it's going to be the Browns?
I wouldn't be shocked if it's the Panthers, honestly. No, they're too bad. They're too bad for the Chiefs to actually lose to them. That the Saints just lost to the Panthers. So, and the Saints fired their head coach because of it. The Chiefs would never play that bad. Like, it's got to be a divisional opponent. Maybe it's the Broncos coming up next week, but I think it will be that one of those kinds of games. Maybe it's the Chargers who are really coming on there as they're getting healthy. Their offensive line's getting healthier. They add Ladd McConkey into the mix, and now Justin Herbert's actually throwing the football again, and they're able to run the ball on top of that. The Chargers are playing really good right now. So I think it'll be a divisional opponent when they inevitably get upset or lose a game that they have no business losing. But I totally agree with you on the defensive line. I'm very, very excited about what this group can do. Mike Dan is going to come back at some point too. And all of a sudden it just looks like they're really, really deep there. Now, Felix Anudike-Uzomah might be kind of left out with the addition of Joshua Uche, but he'll still be in the mix there. Like they're really deep along the defensive line. They're going to be able to get after the quarterback, and I'm really excited about what this pass rush can do here moving forward. But let's get to a couple of comments before we get out of here. 50 minutes, Monday Night Football, overtime win. We got a lot going on here tonight. The first one's from Morgan. As stressful as that was, it kind of felt nice to win with offense again, right? That's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying to start things off, Rocky. Like, this game had all of the staples of the Chiefs and why they're a frustrating football team sometimes, but it was still one of the most fun games I've had with them in a while because we haven't really seen them, go get it done on offense the way that they did tonight and move the ball. And Patrick Mahomes, this gutsy performance, DeAndre Hopkins making plays. Like, it just works tonight. It just got me going as a fan in a way that I feel like I hadn't gotten there with the Chiefs offense in a while.
Oh, 100%. It's like the three wise men and Patrick Mahomes out there. You got Hopkins, Hunt, and Kelce out there, just old guys out there performing. And then Patrick Mahomes had that finally this year had a I'm mother effing Patrick Mahomes type of game. Right, where that touchdown to P. Ryan was vintage Patrick Mahomes, right? And that throw to DeAndre Hopkins, like that's a throw that we haven't seen Mahomes have the confidence to make in a really long time. Like it was almost like, you ever seen the movie Hook, right? Where like they go up to Robin Williams and the Lost Boy pushes all the wrinkles away from his face and he goes, "Oh, there you are, Peter." Like that's what I felt on that throw from Mahomes to Hopkins. I was like, "Oh, there you are, Patrick. Like, thank you. You're still there. You're still that guy."
It was with like $4 closing in on him, like just pressure collapsing all around him. Pretty sure it was off of 1 foot, just lets it fly. And of course, he puts it in a perfect spot right in between 3 Bucs defenders for DeAndre Hopkins to snatch the football and come down with it. Just an insane.
Kimes tweeted that he threw it from inside of a tornado of pass rushers. That's exactly what it looked like.
Yeah, it was absolutely insane. It's been a while since we've seen that kind of play from Patrick Mahomes. From our friend Rafa, Hopkins catching that ball in the rain through contact for a touchdown, just fireworks. Yeah, like that's that. So far, DeAndre Hopkins has given us everything and more that we could have hoped for out of that trade. Now, for me, it's just, please keep that guy on the field. Please keep these guys healthy, because that has been the biggest thing that is going to get in the way of them making NFL history this season. And now that we've got a little taste of it, it's going to hurt even more if something bad happens. So just let the Chiefs offense stay healthy, please. Can we just get it like this the rest of the way? Like maybe add Isaiah Pacheco back into the mix. I'm not holding my breath for Rashee Rice or Hollywood Brown, but this version of it, that's all I need the rest of the way, Rocky.
100%. That's all I need. And whatever like dark voodoo magic I need to do in order to keep these guys healthy and put a hex on anybody who tries to hurt them, just let me know. I will make voodoo dolls. I will sacrifice chickens, whatever I got to do to keep this mojo going. I will give in to the dark arts.
And last thing from KCJ Dub, we had 3 old men with a dominant game. Kelce, Hopkins, and Hunt absolutely took over. Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like this, I'm having a lot of fun with this version of the Chiefs right now. This old, after we've gone through these years of like really young offense, really young growing defense with some star veterans mixed in here and there, and now they've just got all these veterans on offense, but it's like that's all they really ever needed was like aging veterans are fine if you put them in the best possible positions to utilize their skill sets at those points in their careers. And that's exactly what the Chiefs are doing right now. And they're winning that way because of it. Like that's credit to Andy Reid and his coaching staff and Patrick Mahomes and everybody on that side of the ball. But this is just a really fun version of the Chiefs. Like I'm just really enjoying all of it right now as they remain undefeated with the overtime win on Monday night.
Yeah, it's like watching the Chiefs offense right now. And KCJ, like I said, 3 wise men were simpatico right here. Same thought process. Watching the Chiefs offense right now is like watching White Man Can't Jump with 2 Wesley Snipes and 1 Woody Harrelson. Like Kelce's Woody Harrelson, and then Kareem Hunt's Wesley Snipes, and then DeAndre Hopkins is also Wesley Snipes. And so it's like we got White Man Can't Jump with an extra Wesley Snipes, which, I mean, that would have been a really cool movie. Tell me I'm wrong. Like, it would have been a really cool movie.
I certainly would have watched it, but he's Rocky Magaña. You can follow him on Twitter at Rocky Magaña. I'm Steven Serda. That's where you can find me. Again, please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review everything that we're doing here on Foolish Club Media. Head over to our YouTube page. Please make sure you subscribe there. We'll be back later this week, and I'm actually going to be out next week for this matchup against the Broncos. So first post-game show I'm going to miss in like 3 years or 4 years, 4 full NFL seasons. But Rocky will be here with our friend Brian B. Shinen, host of Brian's World, which you can also find here on Foolish Club Media later this week. We'll have a new episode of Show on BK. We'll have the Daily Fix the rest of the week. We'll have an episode of each season. So make sure you stay locked in right here. Make sure you subscribe and check out everything that we're doing right here on Foolish Club Media. We will be back tomorrow to preview the Chiefs' Week 10 matchup against the Denver Broncos as they look to remain the last undefeated team in the NFL. We'll talk to you guys then.